Good evening, everybody. My name's Elspeth Lees. I'm Vice Dean at the University Studies of West Suffolk College. Delighted to host this evening with you all tonight. We're going to start with a talk by Rio Godfrey from NICO on what is HE and what are the different options. That'll be followed by a presentation by Ellie Nice about new UCAS application process for 2022. That'll be followed by a brief presentation by Dr. Chris Meredith, who's the Executive Dean of University Studies at West Suffolk College, just giving you an introduction to the University Studies Centre at the college and a little bit about what we do. That'll be followed by a presentation by Ben Rutter from Student Finance England that will talk to you about student finance. And that'll be followed by an opportunity for you to ask us any questions, any of the panel members. Dr. Meredith and myself will work together to answer your questions and ask people to answer those depending on the questions asked. There is an opportunity for you to ask the questions, put the questions in the chat box at the bottom, and our peers will be monitoring those questions for you. We'll be able to answer them by typing, but we'll also answer them to you directly, depending on the questions asked. So we'll aim to close around 7:30, but we'll kick off now. If I can hand over to Rio Godfrey, please, on what is HE and what are the different options.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Yes, so thank you for the introduction. My name's Rio and I'm a higher education champion working with the NICO project based at West Suffolk College. So today we are going to talk about what HE is and all of the different options that are available to your young person. At NICO we do collect data, so if you can just take a second to scan through our data protection notice. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, we're going to look at your young person's options. What is HE? We're going to look at the key features of different pathways, so studying at university, a higher or degree apprenticeship, and then we'll touch on employment and gap years as well, and what you can do to support your young person. So a good place to start is what is HE, and it's higher education, and that refers to any qualification that is at level 4 or above. So I've put down there level 2 and level 3, which is the GCSE equivalents and A levels. But if we have level 4 and level 5, that's our higher apprenticeships, and those are also equivalent to higher national certificates, higher national diplomas and foundation degrees. And then level 6 is degree apprenticeship level or bachelor's degree level. So that's what we mean when we're referring to HE, higher education. So the first group we'll take a look at is studying through university. So on UCAS there are over 50,000 undergraduate courses to choose from, so it is quite a popular option. Why is it a popular option? So first of all, if we look at the benefits to your future career opportunities, on average, graduates will earn 20% more over their lifetime than non-graduates. And if we look at that in terms of actual money, it's around £115,000 over a lifetime. So that's quite a nice benefit. Some careers are only available if you have studied that particular degree. So, for example, a career in medicine or law. But also lots of employers now look for a higher education qualification as a standard requirement for quite a lot of jobs. So it is going to open up the opportunities. Your young person will probably be quite interested in the benefits in regards to student life and that student experience. So first of all, they're going to be able to choose a subject that they love, and they're going to get to expand their knowledge in that area. It's going to allow them to meet a whole range of new people from different backgrounds, from different parts of the country, and hopefully allow them to make lifelong friends. As well as getting the opportunity to join different clubs and societies, they're going to be able to try new hobbies and meet like-minded people. And then, of course, especially if they're moving away for university, it's going to give them the opportunity to gain new skills and learn independence as well. So choosing where and what to study is an important part of choosing your pathway. So I just wanted to touch on some of the things that they should be thinking about when they're making those decisions. So when choosing a university, they'll need to think about size. Do they want a larger or a smaller university? Location, are they very excited to move away from home, or do they want to stay close to home? Facilities, reputation, and then looking at the course itself. So first of all, the core modules, are these things that they're interested in, something they're passionate about, and how will those modules be assessed? So some courses offer a lot of coursework-based assessment, others offer more exam-based. And then finally, it might be really important to them to choose somewhere where they can do a work placement or study abroad. So there's some things that they need to think about if they're considering the university route. You can't talk about university without mentioning student finance, but I am aware that you will have a far more in-depth and detailed talk. So I just wanted to highlight some of the key parts of student finance that will impact somebody's decision as to whether they go to university, and basically say that student finance is essentially a way for students from any financial background to be able to fund their university. Students can apply for a tuition fee loan, which helps with their course fees, and a maintenance loan, which contributes towards the cost of their living. So that's the university route. Studying a higher or degree apprenticeship. So a good place to start is, what is an apprenticeship? Well, it's a work-based pathway to gaining a higher education qualification, and it combines a full-time job with studying. The best way to look at an apprenticeship is as a triangle. So you've got the apprentice, the employer, so that's who pays you, who's going to provide you with all of your on-the-job training. That's who your employment contract is with. And then you've got the training provider, so that could be a college or university, and they're going to be teaching you all of the theory behind the qualification that you'll gain alongside. So in terms of how your time would be structured if you were to do an apprenticeship, you'd spend 80% working and 20% studying. Unlike other routes, for this route, you would apply directly through the employer, and there is no one deadline, so applications do open throughout the year. Students would have to meet an academic entry criteria, so if this is a higher or degree apprenticeship, it's usually in line with kind of typical university entry criteria, so a certain number of GCSEs and A-levels, but they'll also have to meet the job specification too. So this could be things like teamwork, good communication, initiative, for example. And then the average degree apprenticeship starting salary ranges between £17,000 and £21,000 a year. So why is an apprenticeship a good option? Well, first of all, earn while you learn. The fact that they're going to be able to gain a qualification whilst having an income at the same time is a massive benefit. Another huge benefit is, of course, that their qualification would be entirely paid for, so they don't have to worry about student loans for course fees. They're going to be able to gain industry-specific knowledge and skills. And one of the great things about an apprenticeship is that they'll be learning things in theory, and then they'll be able to immediately put that into practice. And then finally, by working as part of a team, they'll gain confidence, those employability skills, and independence as well. There are some challenges when it comes to a higher degree apprenticeship. So they will need to consider that they'll have the responsibility of a full-time job. So their lifestyle is probably going to be a bit different to a student who is at college or university. They're highly competitive. So that's definitely something to consider as well. It can take longer to achieve the qualification, and that goes back to the 80% working, 20% studying. So for a degree, if you go to university, this could take typically 3 years, but for a degree apprenticeship, this can actually take up to 6 years. And finally, there isn't an apprenticeship for every single job role yet, so there are fewer career paths available. For example, if you want to be a doctor or a vet. So historically, apprenticeships were probably known to be more kind of plumbing and hairdressing, which absolutely is still the case. You can do an apprenticeship in those sectors, but I wanted to give you an idea of just how much they've evolved and how many sectors you could now do a higher or degree apprenticeship in. So business, administration, legal, finance, accounting, healthcare, creative and design. There really are a huge number of opportunities out there. So as I mentioned, you don't apply through UCAS, so there are some different apprenticeship websites to be mindful of. There's a few on here, but I'd say that the most important ones to get you started would be the government apprenticeship webpage, and then also Amazing Apprenticeships, just because they have a whole resource pack for parents. And then the Institute for Apprenticeships, so that's at the bottom there. And the reason that one's on there is if your young person's interested in an apprenticeship, but they're not sure what sort of job role they could do, the Institute for Apprenticeships lists every single apprenticeship that exists. So we've mentioned studying through university or through a higher or degree apprenticeship, but I thought it would be useful just to touch on some of the other post-18 pathways. One that can sometimes be quite popular is a gap year. So a well-organised gap year can be beneficial. It can open opportunities to boost your CV. You can gain new experiences. Example gap years, you could travel, do volunteering or work. And it can allow those kind of once in a lifetime experiences. It can show some really important skills to future employers, such as confidence and independence. And if you're traveling, then organizational skills. But it also could allow your young person to try out, do a trial run of a particular job or sector so they can volunteer and see what it's like. What I will say for a gap year is, first of all, your young person definitely needs to set a goal. So have a goal in mind. What do they want to achieve from their gap year? And then create a really solid plan for how they're going to achieve that goal. They need to consider the cost. This has two elements. So obviously, if you're traveling and going abroad, then that's going to cost quite a bit. So they need to factor that in. But also, if they're working, then they could start saving money if they're considering going to university afterwards. And finally, structure is important. Spending an entire year with no structure, they'll lose motivation. So it's really important to have a set goal and plan if they are considering a gap year. And then the final one I want to talk about is going straight into employment. Some students may want to go straight into employment because they know exactly what they want to do. They think that their job role doesn't need any future kind of training or qualifications, and they want to get straight into the world of work. And there are benefits to this. They're going to immediately start having an income. They're going to immediately start building up their CV and all of those employability skills. And if they're unsure about what they want to do in the future, they'll have time to think it through whilst they're earning a salary. But it's important to really weigh up whether employment is the right route to go straight into, because those short-term gains could mean lower long-term earning potential. So if we think back to the start where I said about kind of the difference between graduates and non-graduate salaries over their lifetime. But also if they change their mind and then they need to go back into education, it can be really hard to return to full-time education once you've been used to having a full-time wage coming in. So hopefully I've given you a lot to think about there. There are some ways that obviously you can help your young person to consider all of these options. The first is very basic, but just create a pros and cons list for each pathway, thinking about some of the advantages and challenges that I've mentioned and what's important to them. Research really is key, so do take a look at some of those websites that I mentioned. And any other opportunities that come at you really, so any subject taster sessions, or if they're unsure, there's lots of websites, as I said, that they can go and take a look at, including our Take Your Place website, and then I've put my details on there as well, so if you do have any questions, obviously hopefully you'll get a chance to ask them at the end, but if not, there's my details as well. Thank you very much.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Rio. Really, that's really informative. Thank you. Just to encourage people to ask questions as we go through. If you ask questions in the question and answer box at the bottom of the screen, we can start preparing some of those answers for you. So thank you very much, Rio. And I'm passing over to Ellie, if you're ready. And Ellie's going to talk to us about the new UCAS application form, or process for 2022. So Ellie, if you're ready. Brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Elspeth. I'm just going to share my screen with you all. So hopefully you should all be able to see that now. So hello, everyone. My name's Ellie and I'm the Progression to HE Advisor at West Suffolk College. And as Elspeth mentioned, that I'll be talking to you about the new UCAS 2022 cycle and actually applying to university and how you can support your young people in that application process. So just some key facts to start off with. So students make an application by creating a UCAS Hub account through ucas.com. So it's all done through the UCAS website. It's an online application form. On the application, students can add up to 5 choices unless they're applying to study medicine, or veterinary science and dentistry, then it's 4 choices instead of 5. And students can't apply for Oxford and Cambridge, it has to be one or the other. So you can't do both, it's Oxford or Cambridge. Just worth noting, Oxford currently don't accept BTEC applications, but Cambridge definitely do. So just take that into consideration when looking at those options if that was something you were interested in. Making an application does come with a cost, so it's £22 for one choice and it's £26.50 for anything from 2 to 5 choices. So even if you're maybe putting 3 choices on an application, or your child's putting 3 choices on an application, it's worth just noting that the price will still be the same, so it'll still be £26.50. So perhaps doing that little bit of extra research, covering a few more bases and using all 5 of those choices. The providers, so the universities, won't know where else the student has applied to, and the students do need to apply by the deadline if they want equal consideration. So when you're applying for medicine, veterinary science or dentistry, or Oxford and Cambridge, then the deadline is the 15th of October. And for any other course in any other university in the country, it's the 15th of January. You can apply after that date, but that's just to get equal consideration from the universities. Also, just another little cost to consider when talking about fees and things is that if your child is looking for performing arts courses or music courses and they need to go to an audition, there may be a fee for that audition. So just something to take into consideration. So they're roughly around £45 to £50 for an audition. If your child is looking for a conservatoire, some of the conservatoires are available through UCAS. And some are done privately. So it's just making sure that you're fully aware of if it's private or if it's done through UCAS. If it's done privately, then it'll just be applying through that conservatoire's website. And when applying through UCAS, they will let you know where that money needs to be sent. So if you do have to pay for an audition fee and do say, for example, you have to pay £45, they'll let you know if that has to go through UCAS or if it needs to go straight to the school. So the actual application and the UCAS Hub account that the child creates. So this is what the application will look like on the right hand side. So lots of different tiles. There will be a tile on there with the application on it. But as well as that, it offers so much more in UCAS Hub. So you can explore different careers, you can look at the different subject areas and sort of different career pathways that different degrees can lead into. As Rio mentioned, there's over 50,000 courses, so students can make their own shortlists from there and they can save those courses that they're really interested in when it comes to picking those 5, and then they can narrow it down. They can make to-do lists, they can look for virtual tours, any events, open days that are coming up and save those dates in there. They can chat to current uni students. There's so much to do on there, as well as make their application. So for anybody who's looking to make a late application this year and looking to start this coming September, the application is in the old system still. So this is what the application will look like. And all you need to do is go down those sections on the left-hand side, and then when you're ready, press send, and that money comes out automatically and your application goes off. However, if you're looking to apply for September 2022, so that will primarily be if you are in year 12 or level 3 year 1, then this is what it will look like. So it's more looking at the hub aesthetics of it, so with the different tiles for each section, but the sections are pretty much the same. It's all your basic information, it's contact details, it's work experience details, and there's an education section on there where they need to add their current course, and also they may need your help, your young people, in finding those GCSE certificates that you may have stuffed in the back of a drawer somewhere. You'll need to dig those out for them. So once they've sent their application off, then it comes to tracking. And again, it's all done through the UCAS Hub account. So your young person will get 3 different offers. So the 3 offers are an unconditional, which means there are no conditions to their offer. That university will have them no matter their grades. They want them there at that university. The second is a conditional offer, which means there are some conditions and they will state that when they give the offer, they will tell them what that condition is. And that's usually, it normally is that on the condition that they achieve a certain grade. So it could be that they need BBC, or they need a ABB or a distinction merit to get onto that course. And then an unsuccessful, so they couldn't offer them a place at that time. Then your young person has to make two choices, and these are two very important choices. So they need to pick their firm choice and their insurance choice, and that is their first choice, and the insurance choice is like a backup second choice. So with their firm choice, that is the place that they will be going as long as they meet those conditions. So if they select their firm choice, which was an unconditional offer, that is the place that they're confirming they will go to in the September. If it has conditions, then they'll need to meet those conditions. And then if they do, that will be the place they're going. If not, then they have their insurance choice to fall back on. So it is suggested that when picking an insurance choice, your young person perhaps chooses something with slightly lower entry requirements, just as a safety net to fall back on. And then they have to decline any of their other offers. So once all the decisions and replies have been made, if students aren't holding an offer or have chosen to decline all of their offers, they may be eligible to use UCAS Extra or clearing to still get a place. So it's not the end if they haven't been successful in those 5 choices. So Extra is from February till July. And again, that's if they've used all their 5 choices, they've got no offers, or they've declined them all, then that's just a chance to add extra choices for free at no extra cost, one at a time, until they get an offer in. Alternatively, if that still doesn't work, you've got clearing to fall back on as well. And that's also for anyone who wants to apply even later and who wants to apply after the 30th of June. So again, if you're a late applicant, or if you've received no offers, you've declined all your offers, or you've not met your conditions after exams and your results day, then you use clearing. And that's just matching universities that still have places to students who are still needing a place at university. And then you've got adjustment, which is just for the month of August, and that's for any students who have done better than expected. So not all doom and gloom. So if you've done a lot better, if your young person's done a lot better in their results than they thought, then they can apply for a uni that has higher entry requirements that they didn't think that they could get into the first time. So some key dates just to make note of. So UCAS undergraduate applications open on the 18th of May. So we're only a couple of weeks away. Your young people can start their UCAS Hub accounts now, they can register, but that application tile in their Hub account won't appear until the 18th of May. So then they can be working on their application over the summer, get all that filled in, be working on their personal statements, and then they can send their application, so they can press that send button and pay for their application as of the 7th of September. Then, as mentioned before, the 15th of October is the application deadline for medicine, veterinary science or dentistry, or Oxford and Cambridge applications. And then the 15th of January is the equal consideration deadline for any other course in university in the UK. Again, you can apply after that, but this is just so that you can get equal consideration. Then you've got UCAS Extra, which opens in February, and the 30th of June, which is the last date for applications before clearing opens. So lastly, just a little bit of information on how you can support your young people through their application process. So UCAS has a really good parents and guardians section on their website. So that gives you lots of resources and lots of information throughout the whole process, and you can keep up to date with it by signing up for their updates. So that means that they will just send any resources, send any key deadlines that are coming up straight into your inbox, so that you can keep involved and you can keep up to date with everything that's going on. You can also attend virtual events, any open days. Fingers crossed some might happen. We never know in person. Who knows? It's all a bit up in the air. But any events that are coming up, if you can, then it's sometimes really nice for your young people if you can give a different perspective. You might be able to show them something or make them think about something that they'd not thought of before. So it can be really helpful for you to be involved in that process. And then lastly, just making sure, it happens sometimes that they read everything carefully that they get sent, either from UCAS, from ourselves at the college, from whatever school they're from, just making sure that they read everything carefully, they're 100% sure and confident in what they're doing. And then lastly, just being very aware of the dates. So I know it's so tempting at the minute to book all of those amazing holidays when we see things opening up, but just being aware that, you know, that you're not booking a holiday over the one open day that your child wanted to go to. So just being aware of those dates as well. And that's everything from me. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A box. And I'm sure between myself, Abby from Abbygate and Gaynor from One, we can hopefully answer your questions for you.
Thanks very much, Ellie. Having just done this process with my son as well, I think we need to encourage the young people to really utilise the UCAS Hub, because it is an incredible resource. And my own experience from my son and his friends is that they don't really explore it in enough detail, and that they're spending time looking on websites and so on, which is equally important. But the hub has just been an endless resource, as is the chat function within the hub as well for those students that are on programme. So I would just reinforce, I'd just really make sure that they engage with the process and the hub and all of the information that's available to them, because it's really an important decision. But it's not a decision that should be run into. And I think you've given us the insight there, Ellie, in terms of there's time, isn't there? And if you're not successful the first time, there are other routes, so they're not to panic. This is a first for us, Chris. I think this is the first time that I'm handing over to you. So I'm handing over to my Executive Dean, Dr. Chris Meredith, who's going to give a brief overview of university studies at West Suffolk College.
Brilliant. Elspeth, can you just nod and tell me that you can hear me? Because, brilliant, okay. I'm just going to try and share my screen here, folks. Is that showing what it should do? Brilliant, thanks, Elspeth. Hello, everybody. My name's Chris, as Elspeth has said, and I have the great privilege of leading the higher education offer at West Suffolk College. As some of you may know, but many of you might not, we actually have a domestic HE provision within the college. We are a kind of standalone higher education provider recognised by the Department for Education and the Office for Students as having the right to have direct entry onto a number of undergraduate programmes. We've actually been offering HE for about 25 years, but over the last year or so and over the next little while, we're really pushing forward with a huge amount of investment and development in the area. And so what I wanted to do today is just walk you through what we're doing, because I think irrespective of whether your young person is going off to the other end of the country or down the road or doesn't know what they're doing yet, I think there's something that the University Studies team have to offer. So overall, so who are we? What on earth do we do? Well, as I say, University Studies is the kind of domestic tame university level provision for the college. But what we try and do is really think about HE in a way that breaks students out of the traditional kind of campus model. For a long time, the sort of transformational possibilities of university have been dependent on a live away context. And what we're committed to doing is finding a local, affordable, really high quality offer that builds in exactly the same amount of transformational potential into degree study, but without requiring that live away context. So what I tend to say is that we offer very high quality degrees that combine all the care of a college system and that you might expect of the college sector with all the rigor of a mainstream university. So if you or your young person are in the position of thinking that degree study is for them, but the live away campus setting might not be the best setting to allow them to shine, we exactly exist in that space in order to be a kind of important voice and an important resource. So currently we run around 19 vocational pathways. We offer everything from the professional policing degree, which we work in collaboration with the College of Policing to develop and deliver, through to engineering, counselling, sociology, criminology, a range increasingly of construction degrees. What else do we offer, Elspeth? Virtual reality design, art and design, art practice, music production, and kind of everything in between. So if you want to be a counsellor, a police officer, an engineer, somebody who works in the creative industries, we've probably got something that fits. 75% of our graduates last year were in skilled or high skilled roles 6 months after they graduated. And within that mix, there are a number of our graduates who, I don't want to sound indelicate, but perhaps aren't looking for skilled or high skilled roles because they're coming to study late in life. Overall, our students, 82.5% student satisfaction, which is actually the highest in Essex, Suffolk and Norfolk combined. The only higher education institution that pips us to the post is UEA, who in fact underwrites and supports us in our degree awarding. So that level of satisfaction is across colleges, university settings, everybody who can provide HE. We're sitting up there with some of the bigger players. Now, UEA is a really important part of what we offer because UEA is a top 25 UK university. It's a Russell Group university for those of you familiar with that terminology, and it's a global top 50 research institution. And students who come to us leave not with a West Suffolk College degree, but a UEA degree that stands up alongside any other award that is issued by the UEA, whether or not you learn on their campus with them or with us at West Suffolk College. So it's really an award that is going to retain its value over the life of a student's career, and is an absolutely crucial part of why we do what we do, because we're here to support those who perhaps aren't well suited to the mainstream UEA experience, or who don't want to move away from university, but need and deserve the same quality and standard of provision and award at the end of it. So what makes us different is that we're really focused on having a relatively small supportive community, developing the whole person so that our graduates are genuinely competitive as resilient individuals in the workplace. We're able, because of our local positioning, to work with industry to ensure that the degrees and the career routes that we're offering fit with the kind of jobs market as it's emerging in the east of England. And we teach in an enabling, practical way. That is, that if we're going to draw in a mix of students who don't feel like the big somewhat awe-inspiring campus university experiences for them, then it's not good enough for us to then sit and deliver our provision through a series of kind of lectures that hold you at arm's length. So we really embed a practical, artifactual, engaged and person-centered mode of teaching in everything that we do. So why on earth is our university studies offer something that I want to kind of put in front of you all, in the knowledge that a number of your young people will be going off elsewhere? Well, in answer to that, because we're a kind of tame local university level provision, if you like, we've got quite a lot of university expertise to do events like this, but also to continue the dialogue after events like this, where we can really answer some questions for parents and carers about the university experience. It might not look like it, but I've been working in universities for the last 20 years or so. I was a university lecturer for most of that time. I've worked in large Russell Group universities like Sheffield, as well as smaller, more sort of person-centered university offerings like Winchester or St Mary's in London. Elspeth similarly comes from the university sector, and we're both offering HE in a college context for the first time. So actually, as well as being here to run and resource a kind of local HE offer, we really want to be here across the colleges that we support, so across One and Abbeygate and West Suffolk College, to support all young people who are moving off to university, because I think we've got something to offer in terms of the perspective we have on the recruitment process, going, leaving, what it's actually like, how students actually find it as they begin to start. But also Elspeth and I have been on the other side of the table, so to speak, with approving applications and moving students into offer holder status at universities. So I'm hoping through this, and perhaps after this, we can answer some questions and support you in that way. As I've already said, we also are able to offer an alternative to live away university settings and campus life. I'm acutely aware, talking to students and having had students on campus settings, that sometimes that sort of freshers week, sink or swim environment isn't the best environment for some students to shine, and I think it's really important that we offer something that adds value that meaningfully moves students on, but that doesn't assume that just because somebody isn't ready or wanting to live away, that they haven't got something to offer intellectually and to get the most out of what a university qualification can do for them. We think that a more supportive academic environment is absolutely necessary for some of our learners, and we're also aware that some applicants' plans change very late in the cycle, and that's the other reason why I want to kind of put our offer in front of you and make sure that you know that we're here. That might be that people don't get the grades that they were looking for, but that's not really what I'm driving at under that bullet point. More what I mean is that sometimes people get late in the cycle through into the clearing window and decide they really don't want to move away, or life becomes quite complicated, or suddenly there are more financial obstacles to living away, even if somebody's ready to study away. So one of the things that we're here for is to be able to pick up applicants and support them through the very end of the cycle, in order to make sure that there is a destination for absolutely everybody. And then lastly, I think there are increasingly, and I don't know, I don't know what the conversations are like at home around the dinner table about HE, but increasingly there are a kind of cadre of young people who are much more focused on the outcome of their HE journey and getting a job, and being able to see the traction that their degree can give them in terms of earning power as much as anything else. And so because we're sort of locally situated, our relationship with employers, with moving people into meaningful jobs with prospects and high skilled roles, we can do that in a particularly focused way in the region. And I would be staggered if there aren't a number of young people where, if that is their focus, and their focus is to remain in the region longer term, that we can't offer something up for them. So that's what we do. That's why we do it. And that's what I think we can kind of bring to the table. We're going to be, there's question and answers, at the end of the session. So if there's anything that's come up from that, or you're interested in any more information about university studies, then do ask or get in touch. You can see our website at university studies. Let me get this right, because I can't see the top of my screen. Normally I can see the top of my screen. So I'm going to not universitystudies.wsc.ac.uk. I wasn't sure if it was a dot or a slash, so you'll have to forgive me. University Studies at westsuffolkcollege.ac.uk, and you can see the full range of our programs and some FAQs and things. So whether it's a program or whether it's questions from a lecturer's perspective about what university is really going to be like for your young person, Elspeth and I and the rest of the team are here to support. And on that note, I'll hand back to you, Elspeth.
Many thanks, Chris. Sorry, I was looking at the questions, so when you asked me a question, it made me jump. Sorry, just answering questions. Okay. Absolutely fine. Just looking at the questions, so there are a number that relate to student finance and finance questions. So I'll hand over to Ben Rutter now from Student Finance England. But as Chris said, then we'll do the questions and answers, and Chris and I will be as open and honest and as frank as we can be. Okay. So Ben, are you ready? Are you there? Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
You see me?
Yeah, I can, and we can hear you. Thank you very much. And I'll just wait to your screen. Start sharing your screen.
Can I see that?
There we are. Yes. Yeah.
I got booted out about 5 minutes ago, so this is a bit touch and go. We'll see how we get on. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Like I said, hopefully my connection lasts, and you have to excuse me if I go over the allotted time. I was going through this presentation a little while earlier, going, is this an essential message? Is this not? And as per normal, I've gone on the side of caution. So there's a lot in here. So do sit with me, and I will send the slides around to the guys at the college so they can circulate the information after I finish rambling on. So thank you for sticking around for this session. I know there's a lot of conjecture and news, some positive, some negative, some right, some wrong about student finance. So hopefully we'll tick some of those boxes for you in this presentation. And it's just going to be a quick overview of 4 main things: the support that's out there for students to access, how they go about accessing it, some information about repayments, and if there's some time, just some throwaway stuff about budgeting. So there's a lot of links in this presentation, but like I said, I will send these slides around for circulation after. So who are we? We are Student Finance England. We are part of the Student Loans Company, and we are a government-backed organisation who administer the student finance process in the United Kingdom. Notice there I say administer rather than write the rules for, because a lot of the rules get passed down by the Department for Education and the other devolved administrations. So while we may be able to answer questions about the services and the applications and the processes, if there's something you fundamentally don't like about the policies, we can't answer that or defend that. Like I said, these decisions are set by government rules and regulations. But getting back on track, so the two main costs the students are going to face when they're in higher education are going to be their tuition fees and their living costs. And at Student Finance England, we make support available to help students out with both. So students may be able to get a range of financial support, but what they will get will depend on a few main factors. First off, their course, where they live and where they study. And just to let you know, the figures that I am running through in this presentation are for the coming academic year that starts in September 2021. The figures do change a little bit each year, but for the last few years, they've just been inflationary rate linked changes. So we're not expecting anything huge to change for next year. There may be some government policy when they move to lifelong learning and bits and pieces like that in the future, but certainly for the moment, this is the situation as it sits. The second thing we look at is household income. We'll cover that as we go through the presentation, and also the student's personal circumstances. And one of those personal circumstances is residency. So this next couple of slides is going to be some boring tick box stuff. So to qualify for support from ourselves at Student Finance England, students need to meet a few standard criteria. First off being they have settled status, so they can live in the UK without any home office restriction. Be resident in England on the first day of the first academic year of their course and have been living in the UK for 3 years immediately prior to that date. As mentioned, we are Student Finance England. So if you are watching this and you are ordinary resident in Wales, Northern Ireland or Scotland, then the student will be applied to their home domicile for support. One of the other things we've seen happen this year is obviously Brexit finally took hold, and there have been some sweeping changes made to the eligibility and entitlement for EU students. But if you are an EU, EEA or Swiss national and were living in the United Kingdom prior to the end of the transition period at the end of last year and have got given settled or pre-settled status through the EU settlement scheme, then it should not mean that they are totally ruled out of getting student finance. There are just a few more boxes linked to the EU settlement scheme which now need to be satisfied before we can assess whether a student is eligible for support or not. And aside from the EU rules, students may also be eligible for support if they have a protected home office residency category, such as refugee, stateless, or humanitarian protection. On gov.uk, in the link there under who qualifies, there's a whole bunch of information about the different categories and criteria that we look at and can accept. And the second tick box is just the financial support they're available to access. So again, the information in this presentation is for full-time undergraduate qualifications. And the general rule of thumb is they're entitled to what we call the ordinary duration of that course plus 1 year. So if it's going to be their first time heading into higher education, maybe not something they need to worry about. If they do a standard 3-year degree, technically they've got 4 years worth of funding to get them through the course. And that additional year can be used if they start a course, find out they really don't like it and want to withdraw and start another course, or if they happen to fail a year and then want to resit and take that year again. And there's also different funding streams available if they then move on from undergraduate to postgraduate funding, or if they choose part-time undergraduate. But like I said, this information in here is for full-time undergraduate students. So the second part is what support can they actually get? So here we'll look at the tuition fee loan, the maintenance support, and the extra help that's out there for students as well. So the headline news, and again, probably something that's not really going to take you by surprise because it's been sort of fixed as the fourth year that we've had the fee caps at £9,250. So we're not expecting them to change for next academic year, but stranger things have happened. But under the current regulations and processes, the maximum amount, or in terms of tuition, that what's called an approved fee cap higher education provider can charge a student is up to the 9,250, and the approved fee cap Again, government regulations and guidelines linked to the Office for Students, whereby if a provider ticks the boxes set by those institutions, then they can charge the full 9,250 for their full-time courses. Some of the facts about tuition fees: if they are eligible for our loans, they shouldn't need to pay anything up front. If you want to self-fund your child's higher education by fully funding or part funding the tuition fee, you're perfectly entitled to do that. Get in contact with the university and make the arrangements to make the payments direct to them. But I say, if you're eligible for our loans, you don't need to. And if you're thinking about self-funding, again, it's important to understand how the repayment mechanism works and look at how their future earnings are going to be projected against the outlay that you may be putting out in terms of self-funding some of the tuition. So the choice is there, but 90% of undergraduates do access the tuition fee loan we make available. So like I said, you might be better investing that money you were thinking of paying towards tuition in another in property or high interest savings account. You can find one, but I said the choice is entirely yours. So we make available the tuition fee loan, and at those approved fee cap providers, that covers the full 9,250 across the duration of the course, or up to 6,165 if the student is studying at what's called a private or alternative or approved provider. Tuition fees also don't depend on household income. So regardless of what you as a student sponsor may earn, as long as the student is eligible, they can apply for the full rate of tuition fee loan, which we pay directly to the college or university across the duration of the student's course. Second aspect of the student finance package is the maintenance loan. Now, maintenance loan is designed to help with the student's living costs. DFE and the other devolved administrations make no guarantee that a maintenance loan will cover a student's living costs, but they are there to help out with their living costs. So again, as long as a student meets the same eligibility tick boxes, they're entitled to get some of our maintenance loan support, but the final amount will depend on a couple of things. First off, household income, and also where they're living when they are studying. So if the household income is under £25,000, then students can access and apply for the full rate of maintenance loan. And maintenance loan we pay directly to the students in 3 instalments across an academic year, 1 payment each term. Repayments, we'll cover that again in a bit more detail, but tuition fee loans and maintenance loans do have to be repaid, but they don't have to be repaid until the student has finished or left their university course and until they earn over a certain threshold. But when they do repay, they don't repay a bit off maintenance and a bit off tuition, they repay it off of their overall loan balance. For this academic year, the student is living with you, and the parental home rate is up to £7,984. Elsewhere rate, if they're living away from home, studying anywhere outside of London, so if they're heading off to Birmingham, Manchester, Bristol, Oxford, Cambridge, wherever, and moving into student accommodation, potentially 9488 would be available this year. And the London rate, if you're living away from home, studying at a London university, potentially up to £12,382 is available to them across the academic year. As I have mentioned, there is an element of means testing on maintenance. So you see here in the second column, we've got the maximum loan. In the third column there is the non-income assessed rate of loan. Now this is what the student is entitled to get regardless of the household income levels. And the third column is the income assessed. So that is the amount that will be taken into account when we look at your income as a student's parent or sponsor, when we work out their final entitlements to loan for the year. And you also see there the overseas rate. That is not if they go and study a full qualification at an overseas provider. We don't make funding available to that. But if they do take an approved study abroad year as part of their UK-based course, then yes, they can access the overseas rate of maintenance loan, which is particularly useful if they were doing international business or languages or something along those lines. So means testing. If any of you are familiar with Martin Lewis and his show and his blog and his website, this is something that he rightly picks up on every year, that it's not communicated particularly clearly, but we do have what's called an assessed and paid guide, which gets released every year and is available now on gov.uk. And that sort of breaks down in a bit more detail how household income is looked at, because for the higher rate of maintenance loan, we do need to look at the income of the parents, step-parents, parents, partner, wife, husband, civil partner that the student lives with to work out their final entitlement. So again, depending on where the student is studying, there's a different rate of income that we look at when we do the means testing and the household income checks. So if they were studying elsewhere, then that upper income threshold is 62,286. Anything earned above that, the student would just get the non-means tested rate of maintenance loan. And then there's also what's called an assessed contribution. And this is the thing that is, again, Martin Lewis picks up on each year. This is what the government anticipate or predict that you'll be able to contribute towards the child's higher education based on your household income. So it's quite an arbitrary system, maybe some would say an outdated system, but again, hey, I'm just a messenger here. I didn't set the rules. So if you don't like it, then again, there's not a lot I can do about it. So do try not to crucify too much when it comes to the questions. But I say if the household income is over 42,875, then this household income assessment will be put in place. So they'll look at your household income, and then on that, there'll be an added contribution that they think you'll be able to make towards their higher education. So this just breaks it down in a little bit more detail. So if the household income is under £25,000, students are entitled to the full rate of maintenance. And the general rule of thumb is the higher the household income, the lower the maintenance loan gets until they hit that means testing threshold, at which point they just get the non-means tested element. And there is a calculator on gov.uk. We can go and enter in details of the university household income, and that will give you an estimate of your student's entitlement for support. I think I saw in one of the questions, and I'll just put this slide back in. We do need to see the household income details of the student's parents or partners, unless we can deem them as being independent. So they might not be living with you, but if they don't tick one of the boxes for independence, i.e. they're not aged over 25, or they're not married, or they're not in a civil partnership, or they don't have children, or they haven't supported themselves financially away from your home for 3 years, or if they're not estranged from you, or if they're not a care leaver, so if you are still in contact with them, we will need to see details of your household income before we can fully assess their support. And the extra help, there's a whole range of extra help. Some of it will be quite obvious. Some of it they'll need to do a bit of research. So we have what's called disabled students allowance. So if they have any kind of disabilities, long-term health conditions, specific mental health conditions, or specific learning difficulties, then they can apply for DSA, and that gives them a whole range of support through non-medical personal helpers or specialist equipment or travel they can access as a result of the additional costs they may face as a result of their disability. If they have children or adult dependents, they can access a range of grants to help them out there. Study overseas, we've already ticked the box for the overseas rate of maintenance loan, but we also have a travel grant. Again, it's income assessed. But if they are studying overseas, they may qualify for travel grant to help them get from point A to point B and back again. If they study nursing, midwifery, or any allied health professions like physiotherapy, radiography, dietetics, nutrition, speech and language therapy, again, the list goes on and on and on, they may also qualify for a training grant and additional support from the NHS Student Support Services, which is non-repayable, and that's upwards of £5,000 a year. So it's worth them checking those out. And also universities offer a range of bursaries and scholarships. Some may be linked to household income, some may be linked to their academic performance, but they're all on offer. They do vary from university to university. So it's really important students spend some time checking out websites, asking at open days, reading prospectus, just to work out what bursaries and scholarships are on offer, and if they are eligible, and how to go about applying for them, because some of them are worth thousands of pounds, so it's definitely worth looking into. Applications. Some of the key messages about applications. Each year, for whatever reason best known to them, thousands of students apply for their loan late. So in some instances, it means we are late in assessing, processing, and paying them. So it's just important that the student is aware of our application deadlines and gets their application in as close to that date as possible. So some of our main tips: they don't need their confirmed place at university or college to apply. So if they're making their 4 or 5 UCAS choices, one of those is probably going to be their standout option, the university they most want to go to. They can put those details on the application form. Then at any stage up to the point of enrolment, even if they go through clearing or extra, they can log back into their online account and change the details. But applying with that confirmed choice up front gives us the opportunity to assess, process the application, do all the hard work, do all the time-consuming checks, and make sure that everything is ready to be paid for them. If they're heading off to university this academic year, we need their application in now. We certainly need it in, if possible, before the 21st of May, because that is our early application deadline. They can apply after that date, but the later they leave it, the more chance there is that we'll be late in assessing the application. And applications are made online through gov.uk/student finance in the majority of cases. Evidence. We do need evidence to support applications. So for students, if they hold a current valid UK passport, they just put the passport details on the application form. They shouldn't need to send us anything. If they don't have a passport, we will need to see original birth certificates. If they're not from the UK, we may need to see non-UK passports, biometric residency permits. If you're under the EU settlement scheme, we're going to need to see share codes and the initial letter of confirmation of status you get from the Home Office. And if you're parents, it's all going to be about household income. So it's anything taxable, earned or unearned, from the tax year prior to when the student starts at university. And also it's really important that they read, understand and agree to the loan terms and conditions. So this is about withdrawals, repayments, applications, assessments, the fact they need to keep in contact with us throughout the lifetime of their loan. It's just really important they spend 5 minutes skimming over the terms and conditions to their student loan so they understand what's what. The second thing about applications, like I said, evidence for passports, birth certificates, other ID details, university and course details, bank account details and national insurance numbers need to be in the student's name. We can't assess based on parents' bank accounts or brothers and sisters' bank accounts. They all need to match up when we do the security checks. And for parents and sponsors, the easiest way for you guys to support the student is also online. So when the student applies online, they'll get to the end of their section and then they can nominate you as the sponsors for their application. Once they've done that, we will send you emails and you follow the links and set up your own accounts on gov.uk. Go through that, fill in the details of all the income that we're looking for, and then we can match up the applications that way. If you don't want to apply online, then you can submit a paper part of the application form. But either way you do it, we'll need to see a few main things: your national insurance numbers and your income details based on the tax year prior, just so we can do all the assessing and the processing with the tax office, and also details of other child dependents. Let us know if you have other children. We can apply a disregard to the overall household income that we look at based on every other child dependent. And if you have more than one in higher education at the same time, then we can also split that assessed contribution, which I mentioned earlier in the presentation. So based on your household income, if they deem that you can contribute £1,000 towards a child in higher education, if you have two, then it won't be £1,000 each. That will get split. So the assessed contribution will be £500 per student. That will knock another £500 off the final household income we look at. And there's also something that we call current tax year assessment. So again, as it says earlier in this slide here, we will be looking at the household income from the tax year prior to when the student starts at university. So if they're starting in this academic year, we'll be looking at the tax year 1920. But if the household income is decreased by at least 15% during that period, you can submit what's called a current year income assessment form, so we can reassess the student based on the lower estimates of the household income. So we've seen a lot this year coming through, obviously with the unfortunate situation that COVID caused for a lot of people, going on furlough, unfortunately being made redundant, those kind of things, having to really reduce their hours. So those are prime examples of when a current year income assessment can be used, and the benefit of that is based on those lower assessments, we can also potentially then give the student higher rates of maintenance loan. And then just at the end of the tax year, you'll just then submit your P60s, self-assessment tax returns, things like that, just to prove that the household income was at the level of the estimates. This is gov.uk, so that's where the applications go through. Also the paper forms, the calculator. We're a government agency, it's the government website, so do bear with it. But we're also all over the internet and social media. So we've got a dedicated zone on the student room, dedicated social media channels, a page on the UCAS hub. We've also got a YouTube channel. We've got hundreds of videos in short bite-sized format, which cover just about every aspect of student finance from A to Z. And then repayments. And we'll cover off some of the facts, some of the figures, and some of the interest as well. So again, this is one of the areas which causes most confusion. And some of it is quite confusing, so that is quite understandable. But these are some of the key facts about student loan. And you'll see in the title there, it says Plan 2. So any undergraduate student that starts their full-time or part-time course from 2012 onwards, they're under what we call Plan 2. So if I say Plan 2, that is why I'm talking about that. So some of these key facts. So the loans, maintenance loan, tuition fee loan, do have to be repaid after the student withdraws from their course. But what do they need to earn before they start to repay? So from this April, the threshold is $27,295 a year, $2,274 a month, or $524 a week. So if the student is not earning over those figures, they will not be repaying their student loan. And those rates are set until the 6th of April 2022, when they're likely to rise in line with what's called average earnings increases. So last year, they were set at 25,575. This year, they jumped up to 27,295. And then next year, we anticipate there to be a similar increase. So the benefit of that is if their income isn't keeping up in line with those increases, or they're just on a flat salary, which doesn't fluctuate each year, then they may very well find that their student loan payments plateau or maybe even decrease. And it's important to note the monthly or the weekly figure, because although the annual one is the one that gets banded around, they may be earning, I don't know, £26,000 a year, but they may be doing a job which gives them monthly bonuses, or they work some extra hours, which takes them over the threshold in a month or a week. So they will make a repayment in that month or that week if they've been over the threshold for that month or that week. But at the end of the tax year, if their salary doesn't equate out to 27,295 or whatever the yearly threshold is at the time, they can apply to us for a refund of whatever they've repaid in that month or that week. But again, that's entirely up to them, or they can just leave it in place to take a slice out of their balance. When do they start to repay? If they've been studying a full-time course, they do what we call entering repayment the April after they complete or leave or withdraw their course. So let's say they finish in the May or June of one year, they don't make any repayments until the next April, and then only if their income is up and over the thresholds. What do they repay? Plan 2 undergrads repay 9% from anything they earn over the threshold, and the easiest way to repay is through the tax system. So when they apply, they give us their national insurance numbers, etc., which then get fed on to the employers, and then the employers then feed those through to HMRC, and it picks up that the student's got a loan, and that's how the repayment system works. So students shouldn't need to do anything to set up their own repayments unless they want to make repayments over and above the basics, or if they're going overseas after they leave their course. If at any stage their income dips to below the threshold, their repayments are suspended. So if they have been earning £35,000 and then they take a career break or take a break to raise a family, cut their hours, worst comes to worst, for an for a time, employment drops under the threshold, income drops beneath the threshold, their repayments are suspended, and their balance is written off 30 years after they enter repayment. So that 30 years starts that April after they complete or leave their course, and will keep on ticking down even during any periods when they're not earning over the threshold. So again, depending on what website you read, they estimate anywhere between 78 and 83% of students won't be repaying the full amount of what they borrow, which again goes back to that point at the start. If you're thinking about self-funding their tuition fees, you may want to think about how the repayment mechanism works before you make a big contribution towards fees. This is just how the repayments look based under the threshold which came in from this April. So if they were earning £40,000 a year, then 9% will be deducted from £12,705 of that, or approximately monthly £95 repayment. So in a common example, if they were earning £30,000 a year, their 9% gets deducted from 2,705. So their monthly repayment based on a salary of £30,000 is £20 a month towards their student loan contribution. And interest, these are loans, so they do attract interest, and under the current system for Plan 2, the interest is linked to retail prices index and the rate will vary. So when they're in study until they enter repayment, interest will be applied at the current maximum rate of retail prices index plus 3%. The retail prices index changes once a year and it's generally set using the figure from March, which is applied in September. So until this September, it's going to be set at 2.6% because that is what the figure was last March. If you are a bit of a nerd for things like this, like me, if you check the ONS website, you've seen that the RPI rate at the end of this March was 1.5%. So if it follows that pattern, we may see a lower rate this year, but again, DFE won't confirm that until later on in the year. And then once they enter repayment, their interest rate changes and it's then linked to what they earn. So if they earn under the lower threshold, it's just retail prices index only. If they earn over the maximum threshold, then it's retail prices index plus 3% again. So like I said, that's not easy to understand, but once the students do apply and they've got their online account, they'll also have a repayment account. And on that repayment account, they can see their overall balance, they can make repayments, they can see their interest rate and how it's applied, when it's been applied. So they're not fully in the dark. They do need to log onto the web and check out some of the details. Again, the details are there. And there's also much more information on this on gov.uk in the repaying the student loan section. And finally, I'm conscious I'm probably well over time. Just some messages about budgeting. Again, if you say to your son or daughter, hey, you might think about a budget when you go to higher education and they start roll their eyes. Again, it's just important that they do understand it because, like I said, a maintenance loan will only go so far. There's no guarantee it's going to cover all of their living costs. And it's also just important that it might be the first time they're living independently. It's essential that they get their head around some of the costs they are going to face because some of them might be things they're not expecting. Obviously, some of the costs like books and study materials, course materials, their phone, internet, gym memberships, social activities, food and drinks, they're probably thinking, yep, that's where my student loan is going to go. But there are also things they might not have thought of, such as insurance, TV licenses. I know they stream, but you know, if they are watching TV like us old folk do, they might still need to get a TV license. So planning a budget can help. And there are a lot of good websites out there. Particular one is Save the Student, who've got a lot of useful stuff and information on them. They're not sponsoring me, but I've got a few more slides about Save the Student. And also thinking about part-time work. Again, as I mentioned, the maintenance loan will only go so far. So managing a part-time job alongside their study is something that a lot of students can successfully do. So they might need to think about that, whether it's during term time or just intensively during the holidays. Again, just pulling some more information from Save the Student. I say some of the useful information you can find across some of these websites. So this one here is just quite eye-opening when I saw it and I compared it to my time in university back in the dark ages. They're now estimating that a student spends around £795 a month. Like I said, slides like this and websites like this just give you a real sort of eye-opening view about where some of the money is going to be going. And also there's things like, you know, saying the sort of percentages on where the students gets their money for. So you see a close tie maintenance loan and part-time jobs. Parents, you'll be delighted to know, come in at 68%, so get ready for that one. And also things like savings, grants, overdrafts, and then things we don't want them doing like commercial payday loans, drug trials, cryptocurrencies, gambling. Yeah, we won't go on that list. But again, it's important to do some research because there were, again, in the Save the Student publications, some quite eye-opening figures, like 39% of students weren't made aware of the full range of funding options available to them. But again, as we've gone through this presentation, there's an awful lot of websites and an awful lot of information that is out there. 2 in 5 didn't understand their loan agreement. which goes back to the terms and conditions. Important they spend some time reading those. 49% worry about loan repayments. Again, it's something that most people communicate accurately, some people don't, but what the most important thing is that they understand what the repayments are going to mean for them based on their future career path, and not get blinded by someone that's saying, oh, you're going to have a saddled with a lifetime of debt. I want to know who coined that phrase, and if they're getting a commission, I want a slice of it, because everyone says that, but they need to understand what it means for them, and looking at the repayment slides and the repayment mechanisms and what their actual repayments are going to be. And 68% don't know the interest rate. That is understandable. I don't understand it sometimes, and it can go up, and linking it to RPI and RPI plus 3. What does that mean to anybody? So again, doing some research and checking out their repayment website, their repayment portal will give them more information about things like that as well. But so the information is out there. Some of it they do need to look for, but these are some of the headline things they do need to look for. And finally, just some key messages. First off, make sure they do their research so they can apply for all the support that's available to them and make the right university or college choice. We don't want them choosing one because it's a slightly cheaper option and then 6 months in they find they absolutely hate it. We want them to make the right university choice for them. Remember, there's an awful lot of funding out there: the tuition loan, the maintenance loan, disabled students allowances, the NHS training grant, bursaries, scholarships, a whole bunch of support out there for them. Apply online and on time. If they are going this year, please make sure they apply ASAP. They don't need those confirmed offers to apply, so there's no need to wait around. And when it comes time to repayments, nothing until they earn over the thresholds, and even then, their repayments are always going to be based on what they earn and not what they owe. Thank you for sticking with me through that. There's a lot to go through.
Thanks ever so much, Ben. I've just written in circles with big circles around it, 21st of May. So thank you for that. That's very helpful to me. I just looked at the questions. I don't think you're going to need a flak jacket. I don't know what experiences you've had in the past, Ben, but I think the questions are pretty safe here with us. So I don't know whether we want to go through the questions now that remain. There are 8 open.
Elspeth, before we do, can I just before we just, I think some of the questions are going to be on the student finance dimension of this, but just from a university perspective, just coming off the back of what Ben said, the other thing that I would just want to encourage people who've got people going off to university to do is that all universities have a commitment to widen access and participation, and they actually have a plan that they have to publish called the Access and Participation Plan. And in that plan, they identify various demographic groups that they're going to particularly support. So that might be families from a military background, it might be first generation going to university. It will depend on the particular strategy that the university has set, but they're actually committed to reinvesting a portion of that money into the student body. And if you find that if you look at the access and participation plan or the access statement for universities and find that your family or your son or daughter's situation fits into one of those, you're probably on a good bet that there's going to be financial support. And I can tell you from working in universities that a huge volume of financial support that is earmarked as available doesn't always get spent, particularly when it's on targeted demographic improvements in access and participation. So I really would just encourage people that if you fall into a category where you think that your household or your son or your daughter is going to be part of a less well represented demographic group at their institution, chances are there are bursary or or scholarship funding for your situation. So do seek it out, and we're really happy at the college to help you seek it out if you feel that you fall into one of those categories. So I just wanted to say that on the back of what Ben was saying before we move into a broader question and answer, Elspeth.
That's great. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. Okay. I'm just going to go through these questions then that we have here, unless anybody raises their hand to tell me otherwise. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So to answer, if we just go down the list, GCSE certificates, but during the pandemic, students obviously had received teacher assessed grades. could you confirm who this would be, whether it be Gaynor or Abby, or the actual evidence that these students would be supplying?
Hi, sorry. I'm not really sure. My understanding was that certificates were published, but I'm not certain about that. I think what we can do is find the answer, and then we'll make sure that goes with the slides. But my understanding of it was that certificates were issued.
Thanks ever so much, Abby. That was my understanding too, but I wasn't sure either, and I didn't want to say it, so I was looking for someone else. Thank you very much. So we will get back to you on that one. Anonymous attendee, and I think you did cover this, Ben, actually in your slides, but it might just be worth asking you again. My daughter will not be living with us. She'll be residing at her boyfriend's family's home. She'll be financially responsible for herself. Is she able to get support with finances for day-to-day living through the student finance? And would our income have to be taken into consideration, considering she will be supporting herself?
Yeah, I read that question, which is why I stuck that slide back in, which I was gonna omit. If you're still in contact, then unless they fall into one of the other independent categories, then yes. So there's independent categories again if they're aged over 25, if they are married in a civil partnership, have a child, they're completely estranged from you, and that can be backed up, i.e. you have absolutely zero contact. They're a care leaver. But say if they are just cohabiting with a boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, etc., then we will be looking at household income linked to parents and sponsors if they are aged under 25.
Okay. Thank you. And staying with finances, if we may, please, Ben. If your child decides not to go to university at the last minute, what happens to the student loan?
They log in and cancel. As I say, so we give them that flexibility. This is also part of that message about applying with their first choice. Up until the point of when they actually enroll and the university confirms they're on the course, the student has a flexibility to cancel the application. So they can either log in online and cancel it there, or they can phone us up and say, look, whoa, I need to cancel my application. So it's not like a university place which they can defer. So they couldn't apply under a student loan system and have that just deferred and carried over. They need to cancel it and then reapply the year after. But there is that flexibility where, so even if they, if they go through clearing, or if they cancel, or if they change their mind, then we give them that flexibility. So as soon as they apply, it's not set in stone, but as long as they give us plenty of time to change it before the university confirms their place.
Thank you. And could we ask, how is the income assessment managed for separated parents?
We look at the income. It's been a long day. The income from the household where the student lives the majority of the time. So if there's something like, if there's child benefit pulled down for a certain household, that's going to be where it is, or else they just make the decision which sponsor do you live with the majority of the time will be the one that they look at. So some students, if it is a 50-50 split, might be able to say that they live with the parent with a lower income, so they get the higher rate of maintenance loan. But that's generally how we look at it. Let's say the household where the student spends the majority of the time. And again, going back to who we look at, so if there has been a separation of the parents, but the parent is cohabiting with a partner, or they've remarried and there's a step parent, then again, it may seem a little bit unfair, but again, we will be asking for details of that cohabiting partner of the natural or adoptive parent of the student as well.
And staying with the finance theme, sorry, is the 9% of gross or net salary?
Gross.
Can grants be applied for even though a decision is not made to attend university or not?
Grants, as in our stuff?
Yes, I think it would be that, yep.
Yeah, so again, it's going back to the question that was previously asked. So yeah, so they'll apply for the tuition fee loan, the maintenance loan, everything like that, and we will do all the assessment. There's no such thing as a grant from Student Finance England anymore, apart from the disabled students allowances and the dependents grants. So again, we'll do all the assessment, but then if the student changes their mind, then the application for the whole lot goes through. And then similar for the NHS training grant as well. They apply for that later on in the year, I think. June time they apply for that. July time they apply for the NHS training grant. But again, similar sort of thing. They don't apply to that through us. They apply to that through the NHS BSA website. But again, similar sort of thing, if they don't start the course, then they're not liable for anything. It all just gets cancelled off, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. And for student finance, do the students have to know if they're studying at home or away before applying?
They don't need to, but if there is going to be a difference, obviously then we would need to do a reassessment. So if they put home then end up moving away, we'll have to reassess them from the elsewhere, the parental home, to the elsewhere. So it's just worth them having as close to a definite idea as possible, or applying for where they think they're going to be doing, and where they think they're going to be going. Again, we had it this year when I'm sure you've seen the news where an awful lot of students weren't able to take up their place because of COVID, and a lot of campuses were shut. So we had to reassess some students that back down from elsewhere to parental. But again, it's something that's quite easy for us to do. So just applying in the first instance gives us the time to do all the hard work, all the assessments with DWP, and check NI numbers and verify passport details and all that sort of stuff. So again, it's just the key message is just apply early and then change it as and when you need to.
Okay. So do I need to reapply each year for student finance? In which case, does the amount change I get each year?
Sorry, bear with me a second. There is an element of reapplying, but all the hard work is done in first year. For year 2, year 3 and onwards, it's more just a case of we ping out the student an email, say, oi, it's time to reapply for your student loan, log back into your online account. They just log back in, reconfirm the terms and conditions, and just say that something's changed in their own personal circumstance. In terms of what they get, again, as mentioned, the amounts do tend to change in line with inflation each year, but there won't be any massive changes for what they get in year 2, year 3, unless there have been sort of huge changes in the parental income that we assess them for, or they become independent because they get married, or they have a kid, or they get aged over 25. So the reapplication process is super easy, unless there's been any huge changes to their assessment.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ben, I'm going to keep with this theme, if I may, because I think these are where the questions lie. Does the interest also get, do they, after 30 years, do they stop paying interest too?
Yeah, everything that's left in when their balance hits that 30-year window is written off. So the whole loan balance, any interest that's been accrued, all of that gets written off as soon as that 30 years is expired. So let's say as I was trying to say, I think some people say 83%, some say 78% won't be repaying everything that they borrow, and that takes into account the interest as well. So again, it goes back to that point I was making about if you're going to be self-contributing towards these students' fees up front, you may want to rethink when you have a look at how the repayment mechanism works. And also when students are in repayment, they've also got an opportunity then to make large lump sum repayments towards their balance if they want to. So again, if they wanted to, after they graduate, if you wanted to give them the nest egg after that, and they could decide what to do with it, if they put it down as a deposit on property, or they pay off their student loan, again, it's entirely up to them, really. It's quite a flexible repayment system.
And does household income also include that of the student?
No. The only time we'll look at income from a student is if they're getting what we call massive amounts of non-earned income. So if they've got huge amounts of interest coming through trust funds, or the only other time we look at students' income is if they're on like a release from their employer to attend. So not if they've got a part-time job alongside their study, as if they're sort of being paid by an employer to attend the course. But other than that, no, we won't look at students' income when we look at household income assessments.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're down to, I'm sorry, Mr. T, I didn't ignore you earlier. It was just because it wasn't quite a finance question. I thought I'd pulled them all together. So it's a question which I think so again for Gaynor or Abby, are we able to provide information, almost a checklist to individuals so that they know what needs to be done when for academic year 2021 and gap year 21-22?
Hi there. Well, I can speak on behalf of One Sixth Form College. That is something that is actually made available to our students by our personal progress tutor team and through the tutorial process. So I don't know if Abby can answer that for Abbygate.
Yes, it's the same for us, Gaynor. So we deliver tutorials which explain the process, and we put information up on Moodle for students, and we cajole the ones that are slowly a bit too slow and chase them up as well. So I think it's a similar system.
Okay, that's great. So I think it's for Mr. T, then it's to encourage his child to get in. I'm assuming it's the child, so to get in touch to access Moodle or the information that's available to them, because the information has been provided for them. Okay, okay. Thank you very much. I hope that helps. And then Leanne. Okay. Okay, yes, we can certainly talk to you if you're interested. So Leanne, in terms of Chris and I can talk to you in terms of what university degrees are on offer. If you're interested in university degrees at West Suffolk College, we can certainly talk to you about that. And I don't know whether we can, Chris, if you're still there, if we can just get in touch with Leanne.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I'm really happy to do that. I'm also conscious that you know, there might be other people out there with the same same questions. So, you know, if there are people out there who really want to kind of explore what options are available and what we're offering in much more detail, as I say, have a quick look at the website. But you can also write to us. We'll try and get in touch after this. So if you express an interest, the team here will try and get in touch, grab your details, and we can speak to you. But also, if you've got a pen and paper, universitystudies@wsc.ac.uk, universitystudies@wsc.ac.uk will come into my team. So if in absolute extremis, you can get in touch there and we'll reach out. There's nothing we like more than talking about the options and trying to find a home for students who we think would benefit from our little academic community here. You know, you will need to go back through the admissions team, who I can see are sort of smiling through their teeth at me giving out the email address for my team. But you know, you will be passed back through the formal systems, but it might be a good place for us to have an informal conversation about what works. What I would say is that overall, you know, we tend to split intellectually, we tend to kind of split our provision into three areas. There's what we call creative technologies. So that's where people are pursuing a creative ambitions through technological means, everything, you know, that's the art and the technical side of things. There's health and human sciences, which is sort of the social sciences, humanities, and human focused programs, including policing, criminology, psychology. And then there's industry, construction, and engineering, which is some of the kind of sort of more hard hat type of things. So generally we can find a home for people, but reach out and we can look at some particular options for you or your young person or whoever it is who you know want to explore this for.
And we're very happy to meet through this forum as well, so we can set up Teams meetings,
absolutely,
or even come in and visit us and we can meet with you one-on-one if it's helpful.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just scrolling through. I think we have now answered all of the questions. Let's have a right. So last question: how will you send out the information on these presentations? Okay. I'm assuming we're going to share these slides.
Sorry, yes.
I've
not spoken in a while.
Ellie.
Yes. So everyone who's registered for the event, so we've got your email addresses, and then you'll be emailed the recording of this evening, plus all the slides that have gone out. And if you have any more questions, do feel free to email us those, and we can email you answers to your questions as well.
Okay. Right. Okay. Just okay. Okay, there's no more questions. So I think it just leaves us to say thank you very much for your time. I do hope that you have found it helpful. No doubt there'll be more opportunities for us to host something very similar, and we have open days and events coming up at the University Studies for those that are interested. But so we will circulate the slides. It's very odd. I can't see anybody. I'm just talking to a screen, so it's very odd. But thank you very much for your time, and I hope that it has been an informative evening for you. So I will say thank you and have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.